Welcome to Build, Grow, Profit, where you hear from entrepreneurs why they built their business, what they did to grow it, and how they profit. Hello, and welcome to Build, Grow, Profit. I am your host, Cassie Parks, and I am super excited for you to meet today's guest. She is a Navy veteran, a trailblazer in transforming workplace culture, and as a chief happiness officer and founder of Happiness Is Courage LLC, she's revolutionizing employee engagement through data-driven, I love this, and human-focused approaches that inspire passion and ignite excellence. She is helping people become more profitable in their businesses by helping people become happier. I love this. It's all she's using research and backing this up. So welcome, Dr. Sarah, to today's episode.
Thanks, Cassie. It is a delight to be here to have this conversation today.
I am super excited. So in your own words, tell us, what is your business and why did you start it?
So I am a CHO, right? A Chief Happiness Officer, which means I am responsible for things like employee experience, corporate culture, and stopping leadership from suggesting another pizza party. And I have the privilege to work with some really, truly miserable teams, right? Workplace happiness is a pretty common experience in today's environment, and it's not new. But sometimes it feels like we're living in an episode of a reality show that's like a dysfunctional love child of like Survivor meets The Office, but there's no cool accent or tropical island for us to deal with. So I started this business about 5 years ago when I realized, I realized personally that we were all miserable at work. I think most of us have had that experience. But I saw an opportunity for there to be a conversation about it and to really change the way that we work. And this was born from a completely unrelated topic. So I was actually working on my first master's degree. I was researching corporate ethics, super fun topic, and randomly came across Sean Akers' TED Talk on the happiness advantage. If people haven't read that book, I highly recommend it, or watch his TED Talk. It's a great summary. And I had this epiphany that this is something I'm supposed to be doing because it does marry the real science behind what does and doesn't create employee engagement and what we can do about it. So I started this company. I did a lot of consulting internally with the company I was working for, kind of informally to see if it had any merit, and it made tremendous difference for them. And so I just struck out on my own to create my company, Happiness is Courage, and really love helping organizations find that space where their employees love what they're doing and as a result perform to a much higher level and tend to stick around a lot longer, which is just good for everybody.
Amazing. I love it. And so what has been the key to growing this business?
Well, so I live in America where there is not really a sense that we're supposed to be happy at work. People have really internalized the expectation that it's okay to suffer. There is this like martyr complex when it comes to workplaces. So for me, the key to growing this business was figuring out how to translate my intrinsic knowledge and awareness that this is a good thing, right? A good thing to quote a famous cook, but to translate that into the financial implications that it has for organizations. So the data is out there, right? If you follow the Gallup research or the Greater Good Science Center, there is a tremendous amount of research on the impact of employee engagement, or more realistically, disengagement. So when I start trotting out those numbers, companies sit up and listen, because the truth is nobody really cares if their employees are miserable. They might say that they care, but the truth is they don't. They don't have time for it. They have shareholders pounding at their door wanting to know what the next profit margin looks like. And the reality is the profit margins will be higher. So things like knowledge of the fact that employee disengagement globally is costing our businesses and our economy about $8.5 trillion a year. In America, it's about $500 billion lost to our GDP every single year just from employee disengagement. I mean, that is something that every company can measure. Every company is feeling the pain point. So raising that awareness, putting that elephant right smack on the table and having a conversation about how we can do something about that. It's a heck of a lot easier to grow a business, not just mine, but anybody's business, when you're working towards something as opposed to trying to squeeze yet more blood from the turnip. I mean, how many fewer pens can you buy for your employees? Probably not a whole lot. How much happier can you make them? Probably a lot, but not in the ways you think.
Yeah, absolutely. Will you go in a little bit more to the amount being lost, this $500 billion being lost because people aren't happy and they're disengaging? Will you just break that down for somebody who might be like, that sounds interesting, but I don't totally get it?
So there are two main categories of disengaged employees. You may have heard people have heard of like quiet quitting, right? People who are still
Mhm.
employed in the organization, but are perhaps not working at the level they used to, which personally I think is not a terrible thing. I think we have some normalizing to do. But the net result is that those sort of generically disengaged people who are just passively sitting around doing less are costing some amount of money to the company. That's a problem. The other category are actively disengaged people who are actively unhappy in the workplace, and their financial impact on the company has a couple of prongs. One is things like IP theft or embezzlement or sabotage relationships with customers or sabotage relationship with coworkers, which creates a higher level of turnover. And most companies are tracking their turnover and can calculate those costs for themselves. And if they're not, they should do that math probably while sitting down, maybe with a strong beverage, because those numbers are pretty startling. But those two factors play really heavily into performance when we talk about employee performance and how it affects organizational outcomes.
Amazing. So I know you don't focus on profitability for your business. You focus on happiness. Tell us what you do focus on and why not profitability?
So I was raised by crazy hippies on an off the grid farm, and my mission in life is to make people's lives better. Now, that being said, I think it's nice to be able to pay your bills and to do the things that you like to do. So it's not that I don't focus on profitability per se. For me personally, though, my primary driver is not radical profit margins. And the truth is, my goal isn't that my clients also realize radical profit margins. The beautiful thing is when their employees are less miserable at work or more engaged at work, they will see higher profit margins. I mean, the Gallup data on this, the Pew Research data on this is pretty stark. Employed engaged employees work harder, stay longer, are more creative, you have less accidents. The list of impact is a mile long. So while I don't personally focus on profits, I focus on employee experience. The logical next step is, and then your company will perform significantly better.
I got it. I love it. And so you're not saying that you don't try to profit in your business. What you're saying is you don't try to have this huge margin. You want to live, which it's important to profit enough to live, right? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Amazing. And I love how you focus on like increasing employee profits or employer profits by increasing happiness. That is amazing.
It's a
Um
win-win, right?
it's a total like I think so many people know that intuitively, right? But I don't know when people I'm sure like when did people actually start researching that? Like that connection and putting it to a dollar value. Do you know when research started?
I don't know when people started researching like the hard numbers behind how engaged an employee is versus their performance, but I think we've always known that there's a connection. I think we haven't always cared, right? I mean,
Mhm.
when 1,000 years ago, when many of us were peasants and we were owned by the landowners, they just expected the peasants to create more peasants, and they didn't really care what that experience was like, generally speaking. I think we have evolved though over the last 30 or 40 years to acknowledge, and there's a generational difference in expectations to see that people are unwilling, for lots of reasons, to sacrifice themselves on the altar of the organization. I mean, nobody gets a pension anymore. And so there is not that same sense of finality when you work for an organization. So what else? What is the value proposition for that employee to pour their energy into the employer with their effort, their creativity, their time? And I think that conversation has morphed over the last 20 or 30 years.
Absolutely. That's amazing. If you were loving what Dr. Sarah is saying, you can easily click the button on the left hand of your screen, go to her website. Dr. Sarah, give us that website for those that are only listening audio.
I am super easy to find. I am happinessiscourage.com.
I love that domain name. It is amazing because it does. I get why. Tell us why it takes courage to like happiness is courage, right? Tell us more why you picked that name.
When we think about bravery, we often think about a space where there's like an accident and you have to move a car off of a child or something really intense like that. And what biologically what happens in that space is our body fills with adrenaline and cortisol and all of those like stress reaction hormones that give us that burst of superhuman strength to do a thing. And that is great. That serves a very good purpose in those moments. And humans are complex critters, and we have lots of ways to find motivation and inspiration that are more situationally appropriate. So, for most of us, when we experience that adrenaline cortisol rush, what happens is we get a hangover afterwards. We crash after that experience happens. And that is not super sustainable. And I would argue that our cultural dependence on that sort of adrenaline rush to provide bravery or motivation in the workplace has led to the extensive amount of burnout that we are seeing in almost every industry that I know of in today's workplace environments. So where else can we find that motivation? Well, happiness is a fantastic way to be motivated, with the caveat that nobody can actually make us happy. And I don't even believe that happiness should be the goal, but it's an excellent measuring stick to say, how are things going in my world right now? So when I thought about a sustainable approach to re-inspiring the modern workplace, happiness was an obvious choice.
Amazing. I love it. And so if you are watching video, again, link on the left-hand side or at the bottom, depending on where you are watching us. So talk to us, Sarah, about this silver thread, which you can also click on and get more of. And I'm going to pop that link up as well. So talk to us about that.
So, about 35 years ago, my life turned itself inside out in some pretty spectacular ways that I've written about and blogged about and all kinds of stuff. And I was really struggling to find happiness in my own world. And my grandmother, who is probably the smartest person I've ever known, said, just find something little to be grateful for. It'll get you through to the next day. And she was right because she was always right. And so I practiced that approach to life pretty pretty seriously as a diligent personal practice for forever. And then I had an opportunity to really look at the impact of happiness on us in a more scientific sense. So, my doctoral research was actually done looking at the impact of intentional gratitude in the workplace and how it influenced job satisfaction, job performance, and intention to stay with a role. And spoiler alert, if you don't want to read a really dry paper, it helps tremendously. When we experience gratitude, we feel connected, which is important in today's isolated world, and we feel better about ourselves and the people around us. So that's really cool. The other challenge, though, with gratitude is we kind of have this weird sense as a society that we're only supposed to be grateful when something really massive happens, right? So, like we get a promotion, or so we get married, or somebody buys us a car, or I don't know, something really incredible. Those sort of peak experiences that happen once in a while, if we're lucky. And any other gratitude that we experience, we're kind of supposed to brush off. There's sort of that humble brag sense of don't be bold, don't boast about your accomplishments. Brush it off, ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist. That is counterintuitive because gratitude is truly the social connector and social lubricant that we need to maintain the relationships that are such huge drivers of both job satisfaction and life satisfaction. So, silver threads came from the concept of a silver lining. When people experience really awful experiences in their life, it is not uncommon to be told to look for the silver lining. And that year where my life turned inside out, I heard that a lot. And the truth is, the things that were happening were catastrophically bad, each and every one of them by themselves. As a whole, they were really awful. And so to be told to look for the silver lining, it just felt really dismissive of the reality that I was dealing with. But I could find those little micro moments of appreciation in my life. What a beautiful sunset. Nobody had the chicken pox this week. Like there were just these small moments, and by collecting those, they helped me balance out the other stuff that was happening. And the research on this tells us that there's also it wasn't just me having a crazy experience, it was really how it works. So rather than a silver lining, I believe in silver threads, and there are limitless numbers of those throughout everybody's day. We can always find those little moments, even in the most catastrophic experiences. And when we do, we find that balance that we need to get back on our feet and keep going.
Amazing. I love it. So you can click those links for more on that, or if you want to start implementing that. Amazing. So what strategies would you recommend, Sarah, for small businesses or startups to build a foundation of happiness right from the start?
I think one of the best ways to do that is to include some focus on positivity in your core values as an organization. You know, the Enron effect is real. People tend to choose value statements or corporate values, company values that they think will resonate with their target audience. And that kind of makes sense on one hand. And people can smell inauthenticity a mile away. So it's helpful to find at least one of those words you're going to put on your wall or your website that is authentic to you. And if it's a positive emotion word like happiness or gratitude or gratefulness or connection, that is a really great starting point. And then there are really just two factors that lead to job satisfaction. There are a bazillion things that lead to job dissatisfaction, but really just two that drive the good side. Do we think or see that the energy we're spending is of value? Are we doing meaningful work? Can we answer that question? Yeah. Yes or no? Pretty straightforward. And do we have meaningful relationships with the people we spend time with? Now, small businesses might say, or like solo entrepreneurs might say, well, it's just me. True. And you have customers. You probably have vendors. You might have a barista where you get your coffee in the morning. Any one of those people is an excellent place to start building relationships, not necessarily for the purpose of sales or outreach or whatever your corporate business is, your company business is, but literally for the sake of relationships. Humans are, by our nature, tribal critters. We need other people around us to feel supported, secure, competent, capable, ready to take on the world. So find those values, latch onto them, find a way to create value in your work based on those, and forge at least one really good relationship with somebody else, maybe a mentor, maybe a peer. It doesn't really matter. Just find a person and nurture that relationship, and it will take you so far. You won't even believe it.
That's amazing. I love that. As we wrap up today, is there anything else you wish, just something else that you wish everybody knew about happiness and workplace that you want to share?
We have more control over the experience than we think that we do. And I get it. I get that we are almost everybody I meet these days is incredibly stressed out. Life is pretty hard. There are a lot of crazy things happening in the world. Even if you live under a rock, there are a lot of crazy things happening. And we still have more control over our life than we tend to give ourselves credit for. So I think if I had to leave people with one thought, it is take control of things in the sphere where you have the ability to do so. Even if that's just choosing your favorite pair of socks to wear to work in the morning, acknowledge that for the power grab that it really is. We're not actually adrift in the universe. Own that, lean into your power. And from that foundation, then go into the rest of your day making better decisions. And you will.
Amazing. And for those who are audio only, give us your website one more time.
It is happinessiscourage.com.
Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Sarah, for joining us. This has been amazing. Such a fun interview. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Cassie. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And thank you all for joining us. And make sure to check out our next episode on how another entrepreneur is building, growing, and profiting in their business. Thank you for being here. Join our community to attend live recordings, access free training, and connect with other entrepreneurs by going to buildgrowprofitgroup.com. That's buildgrowprofitgroup.com. Register for a free account and then request to join our group. We're excited to connect with you at buildgrowprofitgroup.com.